Welcome to the show that has it all. This is the Betfred Super League.
What a game!
Champions, challengers, newcomers, leagues faithful. Hold on tight. This is the Betfred Super League 2024. There's nothing like league.
Yeah.
No! Got me here. It took a big chunk out of me. Bleeding. It's bleeding. Oh no, it's bleeding. The thing just ripped me ear off. What do you think?
Hello everyone and welcome along once again to the latest edition of Eddie and Stevo, the podcast, here with the support and blessing of the game's major sponsors, Betfred. Now, last week we paid a lengthy tribute to the late, great Rob Burrow. And thanks, by the way, to all of you who sent us some lovely comments about the show. It really is appreciated at this end. Well, this week we're back to normal as we reflect the Wembley final. And as usual, we're joined by Stevo, who last week displayed a hidden talent with his poetic tribute to Rob Burrow at the end of the podcast. Stevo, they really were lovely words. I've known you all these years. I have to confess, I was unaware that you were Rugby League's poet laureate.
Well, just to clear a few things up, Eddie, but I am interested in poetry. I have been for many, many years.
And I believe you told me privately last week you've got a list of poems that you've written about the greatest game.
One day I hope that I can find a publisher who will be daft enough to keep saying to me, yeah, we might make a quid out of this. It's not a matter of that. One day I'd just like to be able to produce that book. And I hope that Rugby League fans will find it fascinating.
I'm sure they will. As I say, last week's tribute to Rob was brilliant. And this is a side of you people don't know, Stevo. I'm not taking the mickey here by any way, stretch or form, because the people think you know, this guy, you went on the telly, you were the bad boy of television, you gave all the players stick, you gave an honest opinion about the game, but they don't know that you're a culinary genius because you can cook and you go on all these. You love wine, we all know that. And now you can write books. You've done two, one and a half, one with me and one of your own. And now you're a poet as well. I mean, fantastic. Well done. Well, and I mean that sincerely. I do.
Well, that's nice of you to say that, Eddie. And also the fact that a lot of people don't realise when I went to Australia, I opened 2 restaurants as well. So I do enjoy cooking, and I certainly enjoy doing the poetry. I'll put it that way.
Brilliant. Well, let's get the book out. If any publisher is listening to this, get in touch and Stevo will send you the book. Right. Okay. Enough of that. Let's talk about the cup final. You were there, I believe. Success or failure, Stevo?
Very disappointing, especially with the fact that Warrington never really got going. I can remember before the game, I remember sort of talking to a few of my friends saying, you know, in the past, people will say, take the chance of kicking a goal. And if you look past all the records, that when you sometimes early in the game kick a 2-pointer, I think it goes against you. I think mentally you should tap the ball, and Warrington should have done that when they got that penalty close to the sticks. I would have gone for the tap and put more pressure on the Wigan defence. But they often say, Eddie, defences will win you trophies, and Wigan's defence was outstanding.
Oh, wasn't it just? They were absolutely brilliant from start to finish. Now, look, 2 yellow cards in the first 4 minutes, completely unheard of at Wembley in a major final. Both Mike Cooper and Matt Duffy received no further punishment from the match review panel. So, does this mean that Chris Kendall got the calls completely wrong? Jonathan Davis, Brian Noble fuming on the television on Saturday. It certainly didn't help the spectacle, did it?
Well, those two ex-players, Eddie, would have remembered the days in cup finals where the official would say, oh, look, I'm going to give you 10 minutes where you can get into each other. I won't give a penalty. It was as though it was an unwritten law about the officials just letting the guys rough each other up. But I'm afraid we're in a catch-22 situation now because there are so many players wanting to sue rugby leagues officials for not doing the right thing. And when the referee did the right thing, because I know they were high tackles, but they were both falling underneath maybe the shoulder limit. But they've got to do something about it. They can't just ignore it. Because if you had ignored it, there'll be some people furious at the fact they didn't give a penalty. It's a no-win situation, but I'm afraid it's something that ex-players, they want remuneration for being injured, head injuries throughout their career, and who are we to say that they shouldn't try to claim that? It's their option.
Understood. Yeah, absolutely understood. But the two yellow cards, I don't think helped the spectacle. We all wanted, didn't we, a great final in memory of Rob Burrow. But as you rightly say, Warrington didn't really show up. I wonder why. 12 men with no final experience. Sam suggesting they'll be better for that moving forward. And only Ben Curry and Toby King, apparently, in the side that lost by a point to Wigan the previous week, as Sam played it safety first. Was that a wise move, do you think?
I don't think so, no. It's probably on par with the fact that they opted to go for the 2 points, the penalty, rather than apply the pressure on the Wigan defence. To score early in any final, that really, really helps your side. But I don't agree with the fact, because mentally they'd say, well, we're only 2 points behind. It's not the end of the world. But if Warrington had tapped it and gone and scored and made it 6-0, now that can become a problem. So it's extremely difficult. Burgess decided that the week before he wanted to give them a rest. And that means that you haven't played for a fortnight. And a lot of players don't like that. A lot of players like to get into the same rhythm, the same day, the same training, the same sort of attitude. And sometimes when you rest them, negative runs through your body.
Well, you can't take anything away from Wigan, despite Warrington having, whatever they had going on, because they now hold all 4 trophies that they could have won in the past 12 months. In the Super League era, only Bradford 2003, St Helens 2006 and Leeds 2015 have won the treble. Saints also won the World Club Challenge in 2007. But this is a special Wigan team, Stevo, and Matty Peet is a special Wigan coach. 5 trophies now he's won in just 2.5 years in charge.
Often when you see him during a televised game, he looks calm, cool and collected. And I always think it's nice to see a coach appreciate what their team is doing. And if they scored a try, show that emotion. And he's done that. He did that at Wembley. There's quite a few shots there where he knew that they could keep control. And there's nothing wrong with showing emotion. But it's the mere fact that over the last couple of seasons that he's been involved, he's allowed young people to come through. He's allowed them to show their ability and give them the confidence. And those youngsters, 2-3 years ago, Eddie, you didn't even know their names.
No, that's true. There is a special culture now, isn't there?
Yes, and when you start thinking about the fact that, if your coach is going to give you that confidence and you can go there. Now, don't forget, Wigan had 2 players suspended for that.
They did.
Now, that meant he had to push in 2 inexperienced players in a final. And it was the same with Warrington. There was only 2 that had actually played in a big final before. So when you try to add them all up, we've already mentioned the fact that, was it wrong to have a fortnight off without a game? We'll never know. But the thing is, the obvious thing, and I think Burgess realised it as well, was the fact they never got started. But they could have started if they'd have tapped instead of taking their 2 points.
What more do you think Wigan can achieve, Stevo? Because, as I say, a special culture back at the club again. Can they dominate just like they have done over the past 12 months? Can they keep this going?
I think so, yes. This will be a little bit more, shall we say, difficult for Pete and the players. Because in the past, when Wigan were winning everything, it was a matter of Wigan had bought the best players. This is completely different. This is a team that Pete has put together, youngsters with experience. And I just can't see not many teams stopping them from continuing picking up trophies. Because you're going to have to play extremely well to beat the Wigan side of today.
You have indeed, and you've got to get through that iron-like defence. Look, downside for me, I watched it on the TV, I wasn't there. It didn't look like 65,000 were there, Stevo. If the figure is correct, it is the best attendance in 7 years. Now, you were there. What do you think? Were there 65,000?
I think all sports have the ability to say, well, we're about 10, 15,000 down. Why don't we add another 5,000 or 6,000? And it's not just rugby league. A lot of other sports do that. But the irritating thing is that just down the road at Twickenham, they had a full house.
Yeah, they were full to the rafters, weren't they? Wembley wasn't.
But let's not forget about all these young kids that have wanted to play rugby league. It's the magic of Wembley.
Yeah.
The wonderful word Wembley.
Yeah, accept that.
And you get that tradition. And so many of traditional things in our game has been pushed to one side.
Next year, Stevo, June the 7th, it's also going to be played at Wembley, so you'll be happy with that. The tickets went on sale on Sunday night, 24 hours after this year's event. By the way, wasn't it fantastic the way we remembered Rob Burrow at Wembley and at Twickenham? You know, they did us proud, our cousins in the rugby union, they did.
Unbelievable. And it just shows you, we often use the word legend, don't we? But Rob Burrow certainly was a legend. And I thought it fascinating that on the television stations, both on BBC and at Sky, they paid not just good, shall we say, tributes, but outstanding tributes involving Rob's family. And I thought it was absolutely wonderful. And so many other people, shall we say, superstars in other sports have made sure that they have offered their tribute to an absolutely wonderful, wonderful player. But more importantly, Eddie, what a man.
Congratulations to the St Helens women, by the way, who beat Leeds Rhinos again in the final. It's 4 in a row now for Saints women. And the 1895 Cup final was a real one-sided affair. Wakefield running out 50 points to 6 winners against Sheffield. Now, Wakefield were at Wembley for the first time since 1979, when you and I were in short trousers, Stevo, 45 years ago. But this new Wakefield team is riddled with Super League player experience. Will they be back in the top flight next year, do you think? Because they score well in the IMG points ratings. They're 5 points clear at the top of the table in the championship. Could be 7 on Sunday night. They face second place Widnes Sunday afternoon. So are they coming back to the big time?
Well, we have to talk about the one thing that we seem to just always come round to during our podcast, Eddie, is if you've got the money, then you can buy the players. And it will continue to do that way. If you can get someone who's backing you with a lot of coin, then perhaps you can get into that situation where you should be promoted. Of course, IMG have made it quite clear that it's not a matter of automatic promotion, but I'm afraid it appears to be automatic relegation because poor London Broncos, they've got nowhere near the so-called points that you need to stay in Super League.
No.
So it's just a case of, are they going to have a bit of a swap? Now, I do know that there's rumblings from quite a few of the clubs over the issue about this point system. And I think over the next fortnight, we may hear something that may change that attitude. Let's hope so.
Well, let's wait and see. We certainly need to know something. We're coming now towards the second half of the season. We need to know something about what's going to happen with this IMG points rating system. We really do. Look, let's draw the curtain over Wembley and the winners. And well done again to Wakefield, Wigan and the St Helens women. What else has been happening? Now, let's have a look. Oh, here we are. Leeds have appointed Ian Blease as their new sporting director. He's been at Salford as director of rugby and operations, overseeing a third-place finish in Super League, a grand final and a cup final appearance. He seems to have the runs on the board, Ian Blease, doesn't he?
He certainly does, and he'll be taking over from the great Gary Hetherington, who will be stepping down. I think has been in charge for 30 years.
Yeah.
Without any doubt in my mind, is the best organizer, is the best CEO that we've had in rugby league. To my mind, once again, I think Leeds, under his managership, are the only club to make a profit during the end of the season. And it makes me wonder whether Gary is going to step down for good. But I just can't see it. I don't know why Leeds would want to sort of say, well done, Gary. We'll buy you a bottle of champagne and thank you very much. I think they would be foolish not to involve him or bring him onto the directorship or whatever. When you've got a man as capable as Gary Hetherington, you don't want to lose him.
I agree 100%. And it's only the second time in 30 years that Gary has stepped away from the heat of the kitchen. I'm sure he will be there or thereabouts, Stevo. But Ian Blease, he begins work on the 17th of June. Now, listen to this. He says he will begin with an in-depth scrutiny of what is working well at the Rhinos and what needs to happen to take them forward. I wonder what all that means for the coaching department, because it's not worked well for the last couple of years, has it?
No, and I suppose that, a new brush comes in, sweeps clean, and they need it. It was interesting. I think one of the journalists indicated, well, what about the coach? And he certainly wasn't going to answer that one without having to look deep inside what's happened over the past few years. Look, Blease has got runs on the board, and that's the reason why Leeds have said, right, we want those runs on our board, not the Salford board. I mean, he's done a mighty job there, hasn't he, at Salford as director of rugby operations. You have to be ruthless if you're going to be successful. He knew what he wanted. And sometimes you can't just say, well, you're a mate of mine. Sometimes you've got to just bite the bullet and make those decisions. And I'm sure that Ian Blease will be making quite a few decisions in the next couple of months.
I'm sure he will, and he's a good lad too, Ian Blease. I've played golf with him a couple of times, and he's great company. But I do know, I don't know that much, but I do fancy that he has got quite a backbone, and if tough decisions have to be made, Ian Blease will make them. Australia, Stevo. State of Origin won last week when we were paying tribute to Rob. Queensland, massive winners, 38-10 in Sydney, biggest ever win in Sydney, actually. And they're now just the one win away from a third straight series win. You have been talking up this Joseph Suwali for a few years now on this podcast. The Sydney Rooster, though, on his State of Origin debut, achieved notoriety. Sixth man to be sent off in State of Origin history. Sent off by Ashley Klein for a high shot after just 8 minutes. Red card, not yellow, red.
Once again, we spoke about it earlier in regards to the fact that the officials, they're well aware of the problems that we have about head injuries. We are trying to make sure that our game, although it's still tough, at least we try to make it fair. The catch-22 situation comes out. It was a bad late one, shoulder charge. Put out one of the great players who've come to the fore. So therefore, I think Ashley Klein had no option but to show him the red. Now, once again, a lot of former players who are now broadcasting, they were up in arms. How can you do this? The state of origin has always been rough, tough. But as I mentioned, you can't do that anymore. If you have referees, you've got to make sure that they abide by the rules, the players, that is. And I'm afraid that, look, a lot of pressure have been put on Ashley Klein saying that, it ruined the state of origin. No, it didn't.
Yes, you have to feel sorry for Ashley Klein and all the referees. You know, they're damned if they do, and they're certainly damned if they don't. There's no question about that.
Now, look, Eddie, being a hooker all my career as a rugby league player, I used to hate referees.
Yeah.
I can understand how they've got to make some sort of decision between one or the other. Listen, Queensland deserved to win. I know it helps if you're playing against 12 men, but even so, they become so strong. They really have become so strong. And we also mentioned a couple of weeks back, Eddie, is that I'm a bit concerned, especially in Australia, that the state of origin has become the game for youngsters to look forward to, for the fans to look forward to. And we seem to be ignoring playing for your country. And in my opinion, we have to be careful that the Australians, because youngsters are coming through from school, going into their youths and thinking this is the only competition in the world. It's not. We have to ensure that international rugby league continues.
And you have to convince the 74,000 who turned up in Sydney and filled the place that international rugby league is important. Now, still in Australia, our old mate Lee Briers, Stevo, is reported to be about to secure a massive move to join Wayne Bennett as an assistant coach for next year when Bennett takes over at South Sydney. Lee's doing well down there, isn't he, in his coaching?
Certainly is. And it's another sad loss, actually, when you think about it, because the Broncos, they've already lost one assistant coach. And it just sort of brings it to my mind that if you do well as an assistant, then other clubs, they want to get your advice. And Briers has done a magnificent job. And it didn't surprise me that the great Wayne Bennett has gone for Briers because he knows he's got the background. Who better would you have to look around the halfback situation for any team? When you look at the experience and the achievements that Lee Briers has done as a player, and it's obvious he's passing on all that to the upcoming players.
I wonder what it means for Sam Burgess, Stevo, because the rumours persist that Sam will be going back to South Sydney at some stage in the future. Now, Sam has got another year on his contract, so at the end of 2025, he might have a big decision to make. But Lee moving in with Wayne Bennett in 2025, what's it mean for Sam, do you think?
Well, I know that Wayne Bennett fully appreciates the quality of Sam Burgess, especially as a player, because Bennett was in charge when they won the championship down. They won the grand final down in Australia. And he's made it quite clear that if there's ever an opportunity for Sam Burgess to join Wayne Bennett, irrespective of which club that Bennett will be with, then I think Sam Burgess will want to go back to Australia. But I give him credit. Sam has made it quite clear that he has a contract at Warrington and he will not move until that contract is finalised.
And I wonder if when he does eventually move, whether Warrington will have a trophy in the cabinet. They're all keeping their fingers crossed here in Warrington that might be the case. Now, Stevo, back in the day, rugby league in this country used to be signing big name rugby union stars. Jonathan Davis, for instance, we mentioned him earlier on in this podcast. You have news about a massive move for a Wallaby who's joining the league ranks down in the NRL.
Yeah, it only came out today that a Wallaby star, he played in the World Cup, is called Carter Gordon. And he has just signed a 2-year deal for the Gold Coast Titans. And that is an amazing move in regards to the fact that the amount of money in both codes down under is enormous. So it's a matter of, is it just what's on the check that they give you? Or have you been looking at rugby league and saying, I wouldn't mind trying that out? But it is a big blow to the Wallabies because that Carter Gordon is a very, very great player.
And it's the sort of signing we don't see in this country anymore, isn't it? Because the rugby union is, mind you, their club game is in a bit of a state of chaos because there's one or two clubs in the Premiership who are struggling financially, but internationally they have the cash. And the days of us signing ex-international rugby union stars, they're long gone, Stevo, aren't they? It's that word that you use persistently on this podcast, money, cash. We haven't got it. We can't attract them anymore.
No. And it's, you just look at the bottom line. Can I earn more in one code or the other? And we can't afford. Here in this country, in the UK, we just cannot afford to even get anywhere near a rugby union player which is earning money. And I mean big money. And of course, everybody knows now that the big money is in France. So all the top players, they don't want to just come back, say, from Australia or vice versa to the UK. All the big guys want to play in France. I mean, the wages and the contracts, astronomical. It's just an amazing amount of money that they're paying out. And I don't know where the French government are involved in this, but I'll tell you what, I think they might be a bit nervous because Macron has called for an election.
He has, hasn't he? He's called a snap election.
Macron, I do know, is a great fan of rugby union. Who knows? If he loses out, then rugby union may not get as much cash from the government.
Well, let's wait and see. We're all rubbing our hands now here. Look, we're back to the bread and butter this week in the Super League. All the teams are in action. Sky, by the way, going to be paying a tribute to Rob Burrow in the build-up to the game against Salford on Friday night. There's some intriguing matches. We look back at them all next week when we return for another podcast. I think we've sorted the world out, Stevo, and even old Macron might be in a spot of bother now.
Well, you never know. But talking about having players going backwards and forwards, Eddie, just before we go, is, of course, Will Price went over to the Newcastle Knights. And the famous Newcastle legends, the Johns brothers, are up in arms. They're screaming out in the media for Will Price to be given the opportunity to play in the first team. But the coach, Adam O'Brien, he maintains that Price is not ready to be selected in the top grade. And he continues to select Jackson Hastings, who, to be fair, hasn't been playing well. In fact, has been playing well below par of what he's capable of. So it's not a matter of that we'll sign UK players, Australian players, etc. Sometimes when you bring them over, they don't get an opportunity. And it looks that way for Will Price.
Well, let's see if he plays this weekend and the Johns brothers get their way. Steve, always great to talk to you. We'll talk again in about 7 days' time. As I said, we'll look back on the Super League programme of the weekend and anything else that's going on in Australia, and let's know how Will Price is getting on, OK? Talk to you next week.
Take care, top man.